my trust in God. I watched them do work before you ever had a job. And I ain't mad about it, I'm just happy I survived. The coach ain't try to teach you if you know that you ain't live. The struggle was a must and they didn't get it. You wanna be fit, but was you working on your fitness? Can I get a witness? Me and success better have resemblance. Real lion-hearted, I ain't quitting till I finish.
Hi everybody, this is IAM Foster. I am Michael McMillan, and today we have our special guest, Debra Gregory. She is the author and director of the movie writer of the book Cheetah Girls that came out in, what year did Cheetah Girls come out?
Well, it's a 10-year span. Remember, it just kept growing, so.
Okay. So.
I call it a franchise.
A franchise? Okay. Because you have the one.
Dolls, concerts, books, it just kept growing.
Okay.
Albums. So it went till 2010.
2010? Yeah, that was like, I grew up on that. So I want to thank you so much for your time and being here with us today, and sharing with us your amazing story. So we're going to get straight into the interview today, and this is our first question. At what age did you enter the foster care system?
Yeah, so I entered the fourth, and by the way, I grew up under ACS, which is New York City, and it used to be called BCW. Now, it could have been called BCW when I was growing up, I don't remember, but I just know it's ACS.
Okay.
New York City. So I didn't know when I entered the system while I was in foster care. I didn't know. Okay. Nobody told me anything. But I got a court as an adult when I became a writer. I wrote for 10 years for Essence magazine. So searching for my roots became part of my life at some point during my writing career. At magazine writing, that's when it began, my search. So one action I took was I got a court order to see my foster care record because I was searching for my mother at this point. And I was allowed to go down to, it's at 2 Lafayette Street, it's by the Brooklyn, downtown where all the courthouses are. That's where the office, which is amazing that they let me go in there. I went there for 1 week. It was a huge file, and they let me Xerox, anything in the file. So I went down there, I would say for 4 or 5 days, Xeroxing the thing. And so that's how I discovered part of my backstory, which I had no idea, nobody ever told me anything. So in the records, I entered the system at 2 years, 10 months. So my mother was homeless in Fort Greene Park with her 3 children. My younger sister was 18 months younger than me, and my older sister was 9 years older than me. So there's the 3 of us in the park, because it's in the records. Uh-huh. The police had noticed us too many times, and they picked us up. She was taken to that famous place, that famous psychiatric hospital in New York. What's it called? It's famous.
The only thing I know is Rikers.
No, that's a prison.
That's the prison. I don't know the.
Known for mental, but actually it's where the president. If the president of the United States becomes ill during his visit in New York, this is Bellevue. It's called Bellevue.
Bellevue?
The only hospital in New York that the president would be allowed to be admitted to.
Okay.
That's the law. But it's known and famous. You never heard of Bellevue?
Mm-mm.
It's famous for the psychiatric unit, but that technically is only 40% of its operational facility, but for some reason it became famous for that. So she was taken to Bellevue, and then she was admitted to Central Islip Psychiatric Hospital in Long Island. We became wards of the state, and we were then separated and placed in 3 different children's centers. So I don't remember any of this. And apparently in this children's center, which was in Harlem, I was there for about a year because there was the report about that. And then I was placed in the first foster home at 4. So I have no memory of none of this at all.
Okay.
And I don't remember entering that crazy woman's foster home. She was nuts. This woman would frighten the paint off the walls of it. And she was illiterate. Anyway, so I aged out of the system. I went to I aged out at 18. The day after my 18th birthday, bags packed, I'm going. But I've been planning it for a whole year, my escape.
Do you remember how it felt as a kid? Like, did you go to multiple foster homes?
I just said I was in 4.
4 different foster homes?
That's what I said.
How did that affect you as a kid growing up, like going from home to home?
It was a nightmare, okay? It was the never-ending nightmare, and my whole fantasy in life was getting out of foster care. And I did it. I planned for a year because I was in the SP program, which only means that I skipped the 8th grade and went from 7th grade to 9th grade. So that means I graduated high school early.
A year early.
And technically, I could have left. So the last foster home I was in, let's say 18 months, but I could have left. But I was like, oh no, you are housing me while I work and save money, and then I'm leaving. So that was a plan. I did it. Because I was going to be on my own. And I saved money. I worked a full-time job at the telephone company, as I recall. I did start college, so I was, I graduated from FIT, but I remember taking 1 or 2 classes a week at night. And I'm working full-time, saving all my money so that I can make the grand escape from foster care.
So what advice would you give kids that probably had that same experience you are having that same experience you had in those foster homes?
Well, I think that now we have more communication. So, I didn't know anything. And nobody ever told me anything. So now these kids are already at an advantage. It's talked about. You can have support groups. You have things. I had nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So foster care is not a monolithic experience. Everyone has a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
So some people are lucky. They're placed in good foster homes. But I think the whole reality of foster care, which means if you're lucky, it somehow means you get adopted or you're returned to your family, a member of your family of origin. That could be a good ending. And not necessarily, because you could be adopted by crazy people too.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, I think this experience, I know, this experience is going to create some pain. Because if you're taken from your family and you don't know why, that's painful.
Mm-hmm.
If you're taken from your family and you do know why, that's painful.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole thing of being away from people who are related to you is going to create some problems in itself. Like you will feel not worthy, like what was wrong with me. We have this way of just turning it on ourselves. So to me, what helped me eventually, and I recommend it highly, was that I got into therapy. And I was in intensive therapy at the age of 22. But as a kid in foster care, now you have access to organizations. You have access to groups. And I strongly suggest you do that to help you with your foster care experience if things are troubling in any way, or whatever it is you're into. You want to find your, while you're in foster care, then that means research, and you can't really depend on caseworkers. Mm-hmm. My experience of caseworkers, nothing against them, was that they just came and went. I can remember one name of a caseworker. They just came and went. Now I know why, because they're not being paid well.
Yeah, at all.
Nobody wants to be a rapper. So they have a college degree and they're making terrible money.
Yeah.
So of course they're leaving. But you can't blame anyone for that. That's just real.
So give us 2 stories that you'll never forget about growing up in foster care.
Oh, please. Let's see. Oh, okay. Here's one. When I was 14, so remember I told you that there was an older sibling. She was 9 years older than me, and she was with me on that sidewalk.
Yeah.
So I only saw her occasionally. She would visit. It was a big deal, Janet, 9 years older than me. As it turns out, what I find out as an adult is that we are half siblings. All of us have the same mother and different fathers. But anyway, so Janet was my older sister. And she, one day when she visited, she didn't visit much. I found out she was in the records. I found out she had been placed in Callagy Hall, which was a group home in the village. It sounds it actually was kind of cool from what I can figure out from my research. But because she was 12, don't forget, so she was older. But she says to me during one visit, she's wearing a cross, and she says, by the way, that we are Catholic, and our father was from Venezuela. Oh, wow. So this was all a lie. But anyway, I believed her. So then I started in school, you take a language, that. So I took Spanish. Of course, I was very good. And, now I'm half Spanish, you get it? And and then I enter high school. I'm in high school, 9th grade, because remember I got skipped. And my best friend was Denise Twitty. And she was confused as well. She told me that she was half black, but her father was as white as the piece of paper, okay? But, fine, okay. Because like I said, I met him and the man was not white. Now I know as an adult why she did that. But back then the man was a white man, okay? But anyway, and her mother was Puerto Rican. And I remember him yelling at her sometimes, "You spick!" So this was Denise's house. I could see why we were friends, of course.
Yeah.
Partly confused. So this was my best friend. So then I lived in the North Bronx, and there was an AMP supermarket, and it had a sign in the window, Spanish-speaking cashiers needed. So me and Denise, I was very into sewing. So I made us some red hot pants and these yellow halter tops, and we went and applied for the job. You get it? Habla español, please, whatever. We got the job. He didn't even question anything, Mr. whatever his name was. He had a bald head. We got the job. So we had to wear a red apron and a white button that said, "Se habla español." Now the thing is, Denise didn't speak Spanish at all. She was just brain dead. She would send the people down to me. And then I had that, that divider thing, and I was like, "Oh, yo estoy cerrada, me siento," I'm just closing, I'm so sorry.
Oh.
But my Spanish was at least somewhat functional, and I would somewhat function with them. But it was a great job, and that's how we got the job. And then, of course, fast forward, I find out that was a lie. Of course, I am not half Spanish. And I don't know if I told you, but I took a DNA test 3 years ago. But as an adult, when I became a writer and I was doing the search for a mother, I called Janet. We didn't speak much. I called her, I said, "What is it you're not telling me?" She said, "Look, we all had different fathers, okay? And, by the way, she had given him a name. Joseph Novarez was our father. So it turns out that probably was her father. Mm-hmm. But she said, we all have different fathers, okay? And I saw your father, he would visit, play with you. He was white, right? And he never spoke to me. So that's all I knew. But anyway, I thought that was hilarious about the AMP,
Was that, did you ask her that after you took the DNA test?
No, I just took the DNA test 3 years ago.
Okay.
So my search for a writer, my search for my mother started like 20 years when I became a writer.
Okay.
That's when I started the search, and she was alive. She's dead. She was part of that whole experience. She wanted me to find our mother.
Okay.
Remember, this is a girl who was 12 years old when she loses her mother. Yeah. And she was the impetus really for pushing me, could you find our mother? And, but at some point, whatever point it was, I was an adult. I said to her, look, something's not adding up. And that's when she told me the story,
I got
that, so then I was like, oh, she's such a lunatic. You didn't know what to believe with this woman, but now I know she was so traumatized. And she was right. My father was right. And I do believe that she did see him. Because in the records, and by the way, I didn't read the records when I got them. It was too overwhelming. I only read snippets. But during COVID, I read that whole file.
Oh.
Yeah, during COVID, this file that's been sitting here for almost 20 years. And I read every single paper. And there was a paper where the caseworker went to my mother's building. So this is before we became homeless. She was on welfare. And they, you know how they would always, you saw that movie Claudine, you have to see that movie.
Yeah, I've seen Claudine.
Classic movie. Remember, the welfare worker comes to your house, honey.
Yes.
You go, oh, you got a TV? Where you get a TV? Oh, welfare, terminated. So and back then, they were always trying to get money from the men. So they were always pushing to know who the father of the kids, whatever nonsense. So because my mother would not tell them who my father was. So they went to the building where she lived in Brooklyn. They saw the landlord. His name is in the report, Mr. Hochfeld. And he said, oh yeah, this man, I think his name is George or whatever. He, maybe her husband, whatever, he pays the rent every month. So this story that Janet told me has some truth to it. That this man did visit, or he was part of her life in some way.
Yeah.
And she saw him. That's probably all true. He didn't speak to her, But the sad part, tragic part is, I didn't take that DNA test till 3 years ago. Remember, that's when it became viable. The Golden State Killer.
Yeah.
They found it. That's what sparked me to do oh my God, they found the Golden State Killer through DNA.
Yeah. After like 80 years or 60 years, something like that.
Oh, well, whatever he got, but he had killed hundreds, raped them. I had no clue who this man was, Joseph D'Angelo. And it took through the DNA, fourth cousin match, they were able to input the DNA. So, DNA advanced to this level. I said, oh, I may be able to figure out who my father was. So that's 3 years ago, and Janet was dead by then, my older sister. So it's unfortunate because it took me 2 years to figure out this father mystery. 2 years of the digging, he was Italian American. I found the family line, and then figure out which man in the family it was. And then when I meet finally the first cousin, paternal, which means she knew my father, it was her uncle, Uncle Joey and Uncle Louie. And she even took a DNA test for me, which confirmed she was my first cousin. She gave me photos. So if I had shown the photos to Janet, she would have said, oh yeah, that's
I got you.
But she was dead. So, I just have to let go of whatever, because that would have jarred her memory. Maybe she would remember more, whatever stuff. So.
You got one more story?
Oh, that's not enough? Oh, that was a big one.
Let's do so with you working for the extra year of after you already graduated a year early.
Let me tell you something else about that story.
Okay.
Which I left out. A big part of the story. Guess who starts coming into the supermarket, packing up the cart with food for me to give it to her for free? My foster mother. And she brings the neighbor. Do you know that I could have gotten in trouble?
Yeah.
I got caught. So
yeah,
there I am.
without a doubt.
Things by for free, you get it? Packing up her bag for $5 or whatever, because I did register something.
Yeah.
And then the neighbor too. Whatever, my point is, I didn't leave that part. I left that part out. She was a crook. I didn't have that. She was so scheming all the time.
This is your foster mom?
Yes, my foster mother.
So with you staying at the home for residency while you worked and saved that money to leave. How was
No,
that?
that's
How was
not.
that transition like from
Oh my
leaving
God,
them?
it was frightening. I took a taxi. So I had been planning for a year. So that's good. That's important to know and to tell any foster kid. If you are planning an exit, oh no, don't you be waiting until the last minute. You better plan that thing strategically because you will be on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because get this, when I was out on my own, I got scared and I called ACS and spoke to one of the supervisors. She said, your case is closed. There's nothing we could do for you. Why don't you try welfare? I was so upset. I remember I banged that phone into the phone booth. Back then we had phones.
Yeah.
And I banged it. I was furious with her. But anyway, so part of my planning, I was in school, I was working full time, but I went and I got a job at a bar. And the bartender said, oh, you could be my roommate. So I had a place to go. I was going to be her roommate. I took a taxi to the West Village. And, it's frightening, but it's real because you are, and I must tell you the truth. I could have manipulated, but they weren't going to pay for my college, but I could have made it easier on myself. Maybe kind of got them to let me stay a little while longer. But I had no feelings towards them and I was very badly damaged. So, and there were nutcases too, quite frankly. So it was just about, there was no other option, mm-hmm. I felt, but to leave at 18. And it was traumatic. It was traumatic. But I've been on my own since I'm 18 years old.
Since 18.
There's no turning back. I have been on my own since I'm 18.
That's amazing. I can't say the same.
I put myself through college. I did everything. I've done everything.
Would you recommend foster youth going to college?
This is the truth about college. College is not for everyone. College is only for some people. And that's the truth. Mm-hmm. So this whole fantasy is nonsense, okay? So not everyone's gonna do well in college. It's not for them. If you, for example, want to be a doctor, you are going to college. If you in your heart know you're gonna be a lawyer, you are going to college. If you know in your heart you want to be a writer, you are going to college. If you in your heart want to be a hairstylist, then you are going to cosmetology school and get to work in salons or whatever. So it depends, what do you want to do? Mm-hmm. That depends. If you already know what you want to do, but don't think you're going to be hiding in college. That's just hiding. And when you get out, that's going to guarantee a job. That's not true. And more today than any other time. College graduates walking around with no jobs. So this is a fantasy that was built up in the United States. We have this fantasy, go to college, And I notice now, it's kind of like the Cinderella fantasy, that Prince Charming is coming. He's not coming, just a lot of frogs, okay? So, but these are two things I noticed that are very American.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not true.
I love it.
It's just so not true. If it was true, I would tell you, okay? Oh, I'm going to tell you something else that most people don't know. Because I'm older, okay?
Uh-huh.
By me. This thing about, just leave the past in the past, that's a lie, okay? You are your past, your present, and your future. The past never goes away. So you can sit there all you want talking about, the past, leave it in the past, I'm erasing my past. You will not. It stays with you forever. And you have to learn how to heal and make peace with it, but it never goes away. So that's another American myth, by the way. Because I tried everything to erase and forget, and it hasn't changed anything. The only thing that changed was my relationship to it. or my healing of some of the cracks inside. That's what's changed. But the past will always be with me. And that part of you being a kid, it's your inner child. It's always there. And the other thing I don't know if people are so aware of, your development years, that's why they're called your development years. It makes you who you are from 0 to 18. These are very important years and for development.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the truth. So you're not going to get out of it so easy. You'll be able to change some things, but do you know I remember and have feelings more from my childhood than I do, let's say, from the 20s. I can't remember certain things. I'm an adult, but your childhood, the feelings are there.
Oh, without a doubt. I agree.
So, but didn't you notice that there's this fantasy, this myth that you can just close the door on the past, or the past is the past? Have you heard this? Were you ever?
Yeah, but it always finds a way to coming back out.
No, but were you indoctrinated with that myth?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's an American myth, okay? Thank you.
So, I feel like more now people are starting to say the same thing of like you have to start dealing with your past now. Like I feel like I'm hearing that more now, but growing up,
it's always with you.
Yeah, growing up it was more of like, just bottle it up, like you just push it to the side, don't worry about it. But eventually it always comes out. But then to the people that don't know how to deal with that, and the people who don't get help with that, that's when it comes out in a negative way.
Oh, well, it'll keep festering for sure. And that's the reality. People, that's part of being a human being. So you know what the reality is? Look at how little control we have someone. We don't decide who we're born to. That's just mind-blowing. You're just born to people. You have no control over that. You have no control over a lot of things in life. And that's the reality of being a human being.
So let me ask this. Do you allow your tenure in foster care to, like, how you felt? Do you allow that to impact you, like, today?
I have no choice. What do you mean?
Like, do you allow that to impact, like...
life. So it's been a cleanup job.
Gotcha.
So basically, I was almost dead. By the time I entered that therapist's office, the woman saved my life. I would not be here if it wasn't for her. Okay. Because I was on my way out. It was too much for me. And so I can tell you that's the truth. So has it shaped me in ways I don't like? Yes.
Okay.
I tell you that too. And I just do the best I can every day. But I am who I am because of what happened and how I grew up.
Which I agree too. Same.
Now, unfortunately, I would not have chosen that. I would have, and especially when you're in foster care, because it's one thing when you're born to certain parents. You can't change that. Meaning, you can fantasize, if I was born to a different parent, then you wouldn't be who you are. Okay, hello. But if you are a foster child, oh my God, what if I had been placed in another foster home? Or what if one of my mother's relatives has taken me? My life would have been so different. And that's the truth. There's nothing I can do.
That's the thought, yeah.
Because that's the reality. That is not fantasy. Oh my God, it was just luck or reality or bad luck that I got placed with this lunatic. That my mother, in my records, they wrote letters to all my mother's brothers and sisters begging them to take us. They didn't. Not only didn't they take us, I didn't even know who they were. I didn't even know who I was. Then I come to find out when I find my father's family, that first cousin I told you I met, she said that all of a sudden, she was very close to her brother, my father. She said all of a sudden she started taking in foster kids. And then she pulls out an album. Her mother had taken in over 100 foster kids. You don't think that's odd? So I think he told her. And if she had just told them who my father was, they may have been able to get me to
Yeah.
assistance. I mean, this is all reality. Unfortunately, nothing worked out. But, I think about things like that, of course.
But I
Because that's
agree.
real.
I agree with the next statement too, though, is that if you didn't go through it, you wouldn't be who you are right now. So
Yeah, I
that's
would be someone else,
Yeah.
which would be good, but that's not what happened. So,
so
so grateful for any good thing that comes out of your experience, because it could be a lot worse. I'll tell you that. And trust me, I know stories worse than mine.
yeah,
I'll
I
never
know.
forget watching an ABC special about foster care. There was one foster parent who kept burning the child, and her brother saw it. So the girl died from all the burns. And this little boy, you should have seen him. He had total dissociated personality, like they were interviewing him. This boy is going to be screwed up for life. Now that's a worse experience than what I went through. He saw his sister murdered by the
Yeah,
foster mother. So that's worse than my experience. So,
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine.
yeah.
I can't.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's a true story in New York.
I can't even. Whoa. So off of that, what are you doing now?
So, as you know, the Cheetah Girls, I would love for them to be a reboot, but that's up to Disney Channel, unfortunately, because that would be fantastic.
I will love it. I will see it, and I'll have
There's so many fans, and they always email me or message me, when is the Cheetah Girls reboot? And I hate to say it, but is it because they were black? I mean, where is it? I mean, this thing was hugely successful
Yes.
for them. And why aren't you doing a remake? Because this is begging for a remake. So that's that.
My daughter would
But-
definitely be watching.
Oh, I should have brought the Cheetah Girl dolls here with me. They're on the shelf, the girls. But, Cheetah Girl dolls, stop it already. Who does that? Who's got that? Actually, can you see them? No. Oh, no, they're on the other shelf. So my, you know that I have an Etsy shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
So cheetahrama.etsy.com. So make sure you mention that.
Yes, ma'am.
Cheetahrama, CheetahRama.etsy.com. So Rama is an Indian word that means everything of something. So you get it, everything of
I
Cheetah.
got you.
So I have an Etsy shop for 13 years. So that's part of my hustle, how I earn a living. I edit books. But my dream, of course, goal would be to write this next story. And has something to do with all that stuff I told you. A girl who wears leopard clothes, who gets in a lot of trouble and reinvents herself.
Okay.
So that's the story that I think I should work on. And I've started it and I've stopped it and I'm going to start it again.
Okay. My daughter.
And writing, as you know, is very intense and time consuming. So it's no small undertaking to write a story, also known as intellectual property. And I should write it as a book, or should I write it as a series? You get it.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is very consuming, time consuming.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's what I
But
want.
that would be definitely right on the plate.
How can we steer? These last two questions. How can we steer kids in the direction of not going back to what they know? So
What do you mean?
a lot of kids end up aging out of the system and then going back to I'm from Los Angeles, so a lot of kids from where I grew up at in the group homes will age out and then go back to the hood in Los Angeles and do what they know, what they've seen their entire life. How can we steer kids to go into the opposite direction rather than going back to what they already know? To chase, just follow a weird dream if they have a dream, just do it.
So it's a lot of steps, it's a lot of work, you know that. And this is not just foster kids. You're talking about a problem in the Black community, period. Growing up with bad things and then just following that path. That is a big problem in the Black community. always has been for the last 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
So the people who fare better are the ones with any mentors, or let's hope, like, I do hope and know that some foster parents are not horrible, but having some connection with someone, some family member or someone, I don't know who, a therapist or someone who is going to guide you. That's what helps people move forward, period. Troubled people who come from dissociating backgrounds, and that certainly includes some foster kids. So you're talking about a very difficult struggle. As you know, to this day, the percentage of foster kids who go to college is very small. I think it's like under 10%.
Mm-hmm.
The percentage that end up back in the system in some way is like 70%. And when you say back in the system, that means an institution.
Yeah, in jail.
Welfare, they end up back in the system.
Yeah.
That's the reality. And everybody has to, but I think that today, and I know kids today are in a better position than I was, because there's just more access to everything, to groups, to information,
Mm-hmm.
I was like the blind, I knew nothing about nothing. So that is different. That's helpful towards them.
And that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do here on this one. We're trying to feed them the information that they might not be getting.
And there's an organization run by Daryl McDaniel and Sheila Jaffe, who was the casting director for The Sopranos.
Mm-hmm. Which I love that show. Absolutely love that show.
That's Sheila Jaffe, so she's a famous casting director. And Daryl McDaniel's from Run DMC.
Uh-huh.
So they both were adopted. And so they run a camp for foster kids. And it's very successful, meaning they raise money and then they send the kids to a camp for 2 weeks. That's very helpful. I didn't go to no camp.
I didn't
At a camp, they get access to so much and they're part of this system, So, I didn't have that. That's certainly going to help. And these are kids in foster care. They're going to meet other kids from foster care. They have workshops for them, support for them.
Yeah.
And they get to go to this beautiful camp for free. It's in Putnam County. They're picked. And they'll send like 500 foster kids to camp every summer.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's literally amazing.
Yeah, so things like that. Like I said, there was no organizations I never got a donation of a sock, okay? So there's donations and you get gifts, and all of that is important because that makes you feel like you're not totally worthless. And that's part of the problem.
Yep. And I agree with that last part. I agree with all of it, but that last part exactly. So last question. Who would you want to give your flowers to? Who helped you in life to where you just want to say thank you?
Oh, without question, I just told you. Anath Garber, the therapist that I was introduced to at the age of 22. She saved my life. I would not be here if it wasn't for her. And I've only had half a life. But I wouldn't even have that if it wasn't for her.
Mm-hmm.
So from her, I at least was able to get half a life. All because of her. Okay?
All right, you know what? Let's do one more question. So I know people, just in case I know someone's going to ask, what gave you the idea to write the Cheetah Girls?
The Cheetah Girls? What gave you the idea?
Yes.
Oh, please. First of all, Dorinda's a foster child. Anytime a writer writes something, it has to do with their life.
Yeah.
Okay? They're not writing from a vacuum. So the lead girl, this is hilarious. I made the lead character, Galleria Garibaldi, that's the character Raven played.
Yeah.
I made her half black and half Italian because I thought that was funny. And her father was from Bologna. I thought, oh yeah, like bologna, they'll love that. And then I do a DNA test, and what am I? Half black, half Italian.
That's amazing.
That's just spooky.
Yeah,
but
that's crazy.
Part of what's inside of, just things, like, why would I do that?
That's crazy.
I know why you do some things. And yes, it was like, what? Because my therapist was Jewish. She's the first one who even introduced the idea to me. She said, I don't think your father was black. From where I come from, you would not even be considered a black person. You're what we call a mulatto. And I was like, what? She was the first person who introduced that idea. And then as therapy went on, she said, I think he could have been Jewish. So we always had this running thing. Oh yeah, probably my father was Jewish. She was the first person I called when I got the DNA results. I said he was Italian American. Well, I didn't know what. It just says your DNA Italian. As it turns out, from the research that I find out, he was first generation Italian American. So you get it. He was born here, but his father and mother were not born here. Anyway, we live in a country of immigrants. So, I thought that was hilarious. So the dog, that's my dog. That was my Of course I make a character out of him.
I just made my nieces sit down and watch it. So we just watched 1 and 2.
And I told you that I used to write for Essence, right? I was a contributing writer for like 10 years. So I would get a lot of assignments, especially girl groups. So, because I was very good with that and great with the girls. So I was given an assignment to interview Destiny's Child in Houston. So I went. The publicist, Yvette Noel Shore, was amazing. And I had a great time, and I'm shopping at the Galleria. So you see, this all starts forming this thing. And my secret fantasy would have been to be a singer. So when I made the clothes, I had the clothes, but I just didn't have the voice. And she even says that in the book, that her mother says that. I had all the clothes, but I just didn't have the voice. And that was me. So it's all just a part of, and more importantly, the most important thing about this whole thing, it was the childhood that I would have wanted. It was the childhood that I wanted. That's why I created. I would have wanted to have a group of girl friends. I love that idea. And we formed this. How else would you get to travel around the world? Singing.
Yeah.
There are other things, of course. But you would get to travel around the world. You could come from the projects anywhere. So that was, all of this was my dream.
That's
amazing.
My
fantasy about what I would have wanted for myself. So, it was fantastically successful.
Just to hear that thought process, that's...
Yeah.
Wow.
So you always remember that writers are being driven by things. It could be fiction, but it's coming from them. So they're giving you their perspective, their point of view, their experiences, things that they've seen, observations that they've made. That's what a writer does.
That was, wow.
Yeah.
That was dope right there.
So basically, they were little versions of me.
Yeah, like that was.
And I always wore these clothes. Do you know in school, when I made my first dress when I was 11, out of hand, sewed it by hand, and it came apart in school, which was very traumatic. Oh, that was very traumatic. And, back then, this is before high school, so my best friend was Candy Brown. She was also racially confused, I might add. She was black, she was white, okay? But racially confused. And she gave me her sweater, and I tied it around my thing, but then they said, she's great! So the kids started calling me Tony the Tiger. They were confused, obviously. But, so the cheetah thing was always, or leopard, you could call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's always was my thing.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I know everybody's gonna be like, because I'm the age where when that movie came out is when I was watching Disney Channel like religiously. Like I'll come home from school, from middle school and like even high school. I'll come from middle school and high school and I'll be watching Disney Channel when I come home. So let me ask you a question. You in this foster home, they allowed you to turn on the TV? Well, I wasn't always in the foster home. Oh, good. So, because I was not allowed to do that. No, I lived with my mom's mom. Oh, that's great. When she passed, I just came to a realization that I've always been a part of foster. I've always been a part of foster care, but I never realized that I was in foster care, which being
You
in
mean like
kinship care.
kin care? It
Yeah,
was kin care? Oh, thank God.
I was in.
Remember what I said about what's better? I feel that that's better, and if my mother's relatives had have responded, that's what it would have been, kin care. And there's no question my life would have been better, okay? I'm with part of my blood,
See,
and they're
that's
getting paid, but, they were such idiots, they didn't even respond to that.
See, that's the difference, though, because my kin care didn't go well.
Oh, it didn't go well?
No, my kin care. I ended up leaving my kin care and going to a group home for 2 years, and then I went from a group home for 2 years. Then I went to a foster home, and that's where I've been with my foster mom now. I've been with her since I'm 27 now, and I've been with her since I was 15.
Thank God. And see what I mean? There are some good or decent foster parents.
Yes.
I just wasn't lucky.
Yeah, this is the therapist helped save your life. This is the lady who saved my life.
Exactly. So, and that's when you say about kids in the system, we have to keep in mind, if they're lucky enough, they have one relationship or some relationship that will help guide them.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and if they don't have that, look for it, like I did. Unfortunately, it wasn't until I was 22, but, try to find an adult, whether it's through some volunteer organization or whatever, who will help them. Mm-hmm. When you ask, how can they navigate? That's how they can navigate.
Yep.
Find an adult who has because an adult can help you navigate. And if they take it upon themselves, whether it be an organization, a volunteer organization or some therapeutic organization, then that person, you're a child, so they're having some responsibility for you. You form a relationship. That's what saves these kids,
And I agree 100%
that's what
with
saved
you.
me as an adult. And unfortunately, I didn't have that before 18. Because that would have been, I would be a different person.
Mm-hmm. And I got that right at that. I got that right at that critical stage.
Yes, it's all critical. But I mean, you got someone like that.
Uh-huh.
And that is the answer to the question you asked. That's how you get away from the crazy, complete devastation, the spiral of repeating the generational nightmare. Like you say, you grow up with certain things or you've been exposed to certain things. That's how you break the cycle.
So with that being said, I want to thank you for coming on. All right, you guys, this is Michael McMillan. This is IAM Foster. Today we had Debra Gregory, author and director of Cheetah Girls. The Cheetah Girl franchise, I might say. Thank you for your time.
Okay, growl power forever.
Growl power forever.